Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast. Today we're getting stuck into the fourth Test match. England 2-1 down, all to play for. They've bounced back. The Aussies have got it in the bag. It's 2-0. You're never going to get back into it. Well, it's 2-1, and we called here we're going to see the greatest comeback in Test cricket history from 2-0 to 3-2. Rich, welcome to the podcast. Let's break down the fourth Test and look a little bit back on the third Test, which we didn't do a pod on.
Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, it was what a Test match again. England are back in it, mate. Bounce back ability is the word you're looking for. What a legendary word that is. It was a stunner, wasn't it? An absolutely stunning recovery, if you like, from England. 2-0 down. England in years gone by would have absolutely crumbled. Would have been talking to Glenn McGrath 5-0. Everyone's gone home. But yeah, they're back in it, properly back in it. And like you said, we're going to be more of the look ahead in this one because it feels like we've had about a month between Test matches. Is that just me? Or does it feel like it's been that long? But we'll definitely have a little chat about a few bits that obviously some amazing cricket from England, mainly, lads, let's be honest.
It is. There has been other cricket going on in the world. If you're into Test cricket, India have just beaten the West Indies in a Test match. If you didn't watch a ball without being horrible, you didn't really miss a lot. And for all the weight that I've given Bazball over the last three podcasts and how good it is and how must-see TV it is exacerbated by watching someone score at 2.3 and over on a spinning wicket on day one. Wow. Completely exacerbated. You are watching Test cricket at its absolute finest at the moment.
Wow, Rob slagging you off if you were playing in that Test match. Yeah.
Hey, Jaiswal scored a massive 100 on debut, but the cricket was boring to watch. It's just chalk and cheese. It's chalk and cheese. It's watching cricket from 1980 as opposed to watching cricket in 2023. I'm digging a hole here, but I'm going to stand tall in this hole.
Yeah, I'm going to tag Indian cricket fans into this one. Let's see what they say. Look, we're not going to throw superlatives around. It was a really fun Test match, and it is. Rob is right. This is entertaining. It's a weird Test series so far because it's not like we've had the biggest scores in the world or the most amazing bits of cricket, but it's just been so entertaining and so riveting and so compelling, isn't it, to watch every single ball of this one. Every day there's something else that gets brought up. And this third Test was no different. So we'll just have a quick look back at what happened. I think it gives us context then to talk about for the fourth Test. But Pope obviously missed out because of his shoulder injury. He's since had an operation, hasn't he? He's going to miss the rest of the summer. They really badly treated him, I think, at Lords. The umpires, the officials, etc., said he was fit. And then he obviously had that dive in the field where he's really, really sort of damaged himself even more. He's had an operation where they've even cut a bit of bone or something just to probably sort out his dislocation. So that's a tough one. He was out obviously for this one. We assumed Dan Lawrence was coming in, but no, Dan Lawrence did not come in. Rob, did he? It was Moeen Ali came back in with his repaired finger. Thank you to NHS person on Twitter that contacted him apparently. And said, I have a little cream that you really should use. It's very good. And that helped him.
Is that actually true? Is that
yeah, apparently so. Yeah. There's some gel or something, some ointment. An NHS worker was like, this will definitely help Moeen. I love that. Mark Wood.
And give the man a pay rise, or woman.
Yeah, or woman. Yeah, exactly. Chris Woakes and Wood came in and out went Josh Tong. I thought a little bit unfairly, perhaps. But you can't really fault the performance of the seam attack in this third Test. But Jimmy Anderson also missed out. So first off, for that side of things, for the England side, they were the changes, Rob. Yeah? No?
Exceptional, mate. Exceptional.
Bold.
There's been loads of, again, slagging off. I don't like it. Going, England made all the wrong selections. Well, actually, the last time England made a really wrong selection was not picking Stuart Broad at the Gabba at the start of the Test series in Australia. They didn't pick Mark Wood here because he wasn't fit. You can't ask him to go and bowl 95 mile an hour and take off someone's lid if he's not fit. So they went, he's going to be available for the third Test. And what happened? He was available for the third Test and was the biggest impact player in the entire series. No one on either side can get close to what he was able to do.
Yeah. I mean, Woakes and Wood were exceptional. Wood, 7 for 100 with the ball and 40 off 16 deliveries with the bat. Man of the match performance from him. Bowling with serious gas, serious wheels.
Yeah.
I don't mean indigestion, by the way. I mean, he's bowling really fast. He was a difference maker. And it was so nice for once to see England with the enforcer, with the genuine quick.
Oh, yeah.
And actually doing a little bit of the, it's like when someone holds you back when you're going, come on then. Hold me back. It was nice to have Mark Wood as that guy going, come on then. So, but giving it back a little bit. I mean, Australian seam attack, Cummins and Stark especially, has been exceptional. Stark, after his first spell in the second test at Lords, where he didn't look particularly impressive. Sorry, Headingley. Was it? No, I am right. It was Lord. He didn't look particularly impressive, but since then, he's been brilliant. Cummins has just been mega consistent, fantastic, wonderful, all the superlatives for Cummins. Yeah. So it's so nice for us to have our guy that can come in. Brody's been brilliant as well, hasn't he? We obviously,
he's led.
He really has led this attack. And Anderson, I don't think there was any argument about Jimmy Anderson being dropped as well, was there?
No, this is probably the worst I've seen Jimmy Anderson bowl in 10 years. Like, he's been the most skillful bowler in Test cricket for a decade, maybe slightly longer. Yeah, probably more like 12, 13 years that he's been solidified as the most skillful bowler, him and Dale Steyn at times. And it was just a no-brainer. He wasn't bowling well. You can't have all those bowlers bowling at the same sort of speeds, because him and Broad were averaging 81 mile an hour. Then Robinson was averaging 79 mile an hour. And Stokes is bowling on one leg, bowling slightly faster than them. It's like you got to change what's going on. And for all the averageness that Chris Woakes is giving you overseas with England and the tours of the West Indies with these strike rates of over 100 and open the bowling with Craig Overton, and you're like, crikey, we're not very good at this. This is his perfect role. Playing in England, batting at 8, adding value, swinging the ball, nipping it around, and doing it at a decent pace. He still bowls 84, 85 mile an hour. Averages probably 82, 83, which is faster than Broad, Anderson and Robinson. Yeah,
Woakes had more nip than I expected, and that's something to talk about as well, isn't it, really? The pitch itself, the actual surface, it was a much quicker track, decent carry, rapid outfield, especially early on in the Test match as well. Just a little push was rattling along to the boundary for 4, wasn't it? But Woakes was just, again, superlatives. He was superb, wasn't he? 3 for 73 in the first innings, a little bit with the bat in our first innings, but then he also followed up with 3 for 68 with a new ball. And then the heroics, 32 not out of 47 to get England over the line with the help of Mark Wood, 16 not out of just 8 balls. Woody loves it. He couldn't miss the middle, could he? Apart from obviously the ball he was out in the first innings. But Woakes was absolutely brilliant. He was a good shout for a man of the match as well. And he just did what you wanted Anderson to do with the ball in the first couple of games, not to criticise Anderson. But Anderson just could not find the rhythm. It was good that Woakes came in on this deck. I think we would have been having a different conversation if he'd come in at Lords, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, he was fantastic. It was a brilliant selection for me. Happy with it. Moeen Ali. I mean, he got a big landmark, didn't he? In the end, is his 200th Test wicket. The 3rd overall as a spinner now, just behind Derek Underwood and Graham Swan for England. Had a pretty good career overall, but I'm still a bit unsure about the selection for this series. It just doesn't quite sit right. I want him to do well, but it just still doesn't quite sit right. And it'll be interesting to see where they're using, because obviously in the second test, he put himself forward and went, I want to bat number 3. After obviously Harry Brooks stepped up to number 3 in Pope's spot, which on paper, I feel like that's a little bit of a disaster.
It's the sort of thing they tried with him years ago. They was always trying to pigeonhole into, he's batted at, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the order. So that his utility is wonderful for that. But Moeen Ali in 2023 doing that, batting at 3. If it's a pinch hitting role, maybe. If it's against a different attack, maybe. But it doesn't quite work for me. But I think with the ball, he was much better. He found more of a rhythm. 17 overs for 34 in the second innings, and picked up Labuschagne and Smith. Like, that was beautiful. That's worth the weight in gold. Like, you got to take 20 wickets to win a game, but not all wickets are equal. Not all wickets are equal. Usman Khawaja getting a short one and then not getting on the front foot and watching his pegs go everywhere from Mark Wood. That is not an equal wicket. That is an exceptional wicket. And an enjoyable one. We like Usman, but that was very enjoyable. Yeah, Moeen with the ball, 2 for 34, 17 over spell. That was superb. You can't fault that whatsoever. Just overall, I think batting wise, but we'll get it when we start looking ahead. We'll be talking about it, where perhaps he will bat at 3 again. Because I don't think Harry Brook is a top order player. I think he's absolutely a middle order player. And I think he's more comfortable down at 4 or 5 as well. I think he's played most of his county career at 5. He did try a few years ago, when there was a bit of a shout for openers.
he actually went and opened a little bit, I believe, for Yorkshire.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well. And, and then he came back last summer and suddenly he scored what felt like 10,000 runs, let alone 1,000. He was just smacking it all over the park, wasn't he? And he was absolutely deserving of this. And he's just not quite fulfilled that what we expected of in this series. But we keep having to say this is such a good Australian attack. It is a little bit hard work, isn't it? So that was what came in for England. Obviously, yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more. But for Australia, we'll talk about that for a second. Lyon as well, a bit like Pope. He's out for the series. Nathan Lyon, such a shame. Todd Murphy came in, the bespeckled little Daniel Vittori looking Australian spinner now. Mitch Marsh in for the injured Cameron Green. He was out with a slight hamstring strain. Fit and firing to go for the fourth test. So we're going to be interesting to see about selection. Boland came in for Hazelwood, and Steve Smith, congratulations. We gave him a little nice tweet. 100th test match for him. Australian selection, how did that look for you?
I was really happy, and I might be one of the only few to see Mitch Marsh come into this team. Formerly most hated man in Australia, but I've rated him for years. I've honestly thought he is such a good player, such a good striker of a ball.
Yeah.
And he played the perfect role because Australia were blown away in this first innings of the third test, except Mitch Marsh, who played Mark Wood really well, scored boundaries off him, was attacking to him, left well, didn't look in any danger, whereas everyone else looked like they were going to get the head taken off or they were going to get out every delivery that was being bowled. So I think he adds huge value to that team. Particularly, Warner's not the old Warner of old that scores really fast. He's his last decent Ashes knock, you could say, was in, it might have been the Gabba where he scored 90 odd and threw it away. Like, he batted a long time for that. Khawaja's accumulator. Labuschagne and Smith generally more stability type roles in the team and will just consistently bat and bat and bat. Then you've got Travis Head that goes berserk and scores as fast as he can. And if you add Mitch Marsh to that, I think that's a big upgrade for that Australian team. I'll go as far as saying I rate his batting more than Cameron Green batting at the moment.
Oh, 100%.
Cameron Green's got a higher ceiling, but Mitch Marsh is a hell of a player.
Yeah. There's no time for sentiment in this series, is there? Cam Green is a very good player all round, all three formats of the game, of the game, obviously, with his fielding, catching as well. But it's a bit like what we're going to talk about with Jimmy Anderson, whether or not to call up or recall Jimmy Anderson or not to recall at Old Trafford, bowling from the James Anderson end. Or do you actually just say, hang on a sec, I think there's a bloke that's probably better off playing in this next game than Jimmy? Same goes for Cam Green, really, doesn't it? Mitch Marsh has to play in this game. If you want to get Cam Green in...
you can't drop him after that knock.
No, and that 118, run a ball, 118 in the first innings was just incredible. It was a serious counter-attacking, wasn't it? England had got him down 85 for 4 when he came in and put that partnership on with Travis Head, who I thought was exceptional in this game again. Travis Head is averaging, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'll have a quick look. He's averaging nearly 44. He's got 3 half centuries, but he hasn't gone on yet. But he's looked exceptional. You just fear that from England's point of view, you hope from an Australian point of view that there is a bigger score in Travis Head coming soon because he looks in good nick. But Mitch Marsh in that first innings just took the game back in Australia's favour. And you didn't know what a good score was going to be, did you? I mean, just looking at the scores in this test match, Rob, 263 and 224 for Australia, and then 237 and 254 chasing 251 for 7. For England, 263. This first innings from Australia, the first innings of the game, was the highest score in the game, and it was all because of Mitch Marsh, supported by Travis Head. It was fantastic. I don't know every detail of why he's the most hated man in Australia. I've just always thought he just seemed like a really good player and good bloke. What did I miss? Was there something horrific? Did I need to quickly change what I just said?
No, nothing horrific. Just fan opinion based on previous performances and maybe some bias to do with his name and family name that's in the team. But I think just hell of a cricketer.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're a better team for him. I like the statement around that you made around there's no room for sentiment. You mentioned that about the Jimmy Anderson selection coming up to the 4th test. That's going to be at Old Trafford, Jimmy Anderson Pavilion or Jimmy Anderson End. What do you do there? And are Australia a better team with Mitch Marsh or Cameron Green? I think probably Mitch Marsh for this test. If Cameron Green can bowl and he can bowl flat out and he can bowl as much as you like, then you may start to weigh up the points. But the thing is, I can't see Cameron Green scoring 118 or a counter-attacking 50 at the moment. He looks really out of touch with the bat. And if he can't add your value with the ball, then you go with Marsh, and then you sort out your bowlers to get your strongest bowling attack. Because Australia have got one thing to do. All they care about is winning this next one test match. Like the fifth test match can wait until you get there. But both teams, it's just sole focused. You either win or lose the Ashes in the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. England, obviously, you know, they've got a bit more work to do if they want to win it after this game. But if Australia win this game, you can play whoever the hell you want in that last test. Don't worry about it. But it's all about this one. Pick the team to win this game. Don't worry about anything else. But yeah, Cam Green, 3 wickets in his 2 games and 81 runs in 4 innings so far for him. I don't think there's a case there. There's no argument there whatsoever for him to play ahead of Mitch Marsh. Now, whether they find another role for him, and again, we'll start talking about this in a bit. Whether, you know, he said himself, no, I don't think I'm an opener. I'm paraphrasing here, but he didn't seem particularly warm to the idea when asked about whether he could open ahead of Warner, which is another conversation, isn't it? Yeah, that's not, you know, he mentioned Shane Watson. He's like, I'm not Shane Watson.
Shane Watson. No. Every time he played, he scored 50. He was at LBW
46.
He was at LBW every single time playing around the front bat, and there was always a DRS review in there as well.
And then you'd always hear him also doing that. Oh no, as he.
Oh no! Watto.
I loved Watto. He was great. So Cam Green, I don't think he makes the call. However, it's whether or not Australia are brave enough and bold enough to go in without the spinner. Nathan Lyon, you play a spinner, it doesn't matter what deck you're on. There is no Nathan Lyon. Todd Murphy, he's a pretty good cricketer. You know, he's a perfectly fine cricketer. He's not overly experienced. And I do wonder if Australia decide that actually, you know, Old Trafford could be a bit of a seamer. Generally is.
Normally decent pace in it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you can take Cam Green as almost your 4th seamer. It really solidifies your batting lineup. You're pushing someone into number 8. Cam Green could be 8, and then you've got 3 more seamers, haven't you? Cummins, Stark, and another. Sure, you know, you'd expect after a wicketless game for Scotty Boland, you'd imagine that he's not going to be finding his way onto the team sheet. It's going to be at least Josh Hazlewood. But I'm pushing forward now for Australia. We can talk about him a little bit. But Michael Neser is in the squad. If any Aussies don't realise that, you know, you might think, oh no, Neser's not going to play. But if you actually go and have a look at what he's done so far this year in county cricket, the man is one of the finest all-rounders in county game this season. So I think Rob will hit some stats.
Yeah, he's smashing runs left, right, and centre. He's and taking wickets. He's averaging about 20 with the ball, and he's averaging about 20 with the ball, and I want to say about 70 with the bat. I'm just looking at his stats now. 487 runs at 81.17, 2 centuries, 65 strike rate, 123 balls per dismissal, and the highest of 176.
I get him in. I dare you, Australia. Get him in. Come on, get Neser in. You have Neser, Stark, Cummins, and then you've got Cam Green as well. You're going to be batting. Cummins probably number 11. We'll have a look in a minute anyway, but that'd be a fun lineup, wouldn't it?
The point you make about not going with the spinner is an interesting one, because out of the 5 grounds that's being played at this year in the Ashes, Old Trafford's got the lowest average for bowlers bowling pace. Bowlers average 29.33, which is the lowest out of them all. And the spinners average 38.83, which is the second highest. So if you're going to go without a spinner, it's Lords and Old Trafford.
Yeah.
What do you do? What would you do? Right, we're putting you on the spot. You're selector of Australia now, Rich.
Got the gold on.
I'm going to fire in some points. Give me a bowling attack. What are you doing?
Can I start every sentence with look, and then go into it? Sorry. Just a joke. Obviously, Stark and Cummins. I think you've got Marsh at 6. And then I think it all depends if you want to crowbar Cam Green. Crowbar's the wrong term. But you don't really need Cam Green in the team because you've got your batting in Stark, Cummins. If you went Neser and Hazlewood, you've got plenty of batting there. You've got Hazlewood at 11, who isn't 11, but then your number 10 should probably be a number 8. With the bat as well. So Australia are not going to pick a team for their batting, the bowling attack for the batting, but that would be pretty formidable, wouldn't it? Boland can't be in the conversation. He's just not done enough. And it really does surprise me because I thought he would do really well in England. But I don't think he can be in the conversation. So it's Stark, Cummins, Hazlewood, and then do you play Murphy? If you don't play Murphy because of the surface, I think you go Nisa. I don't think Cam Green's really shown enough so far for me in this series. I've seen bits of him before this series, and I know he's going to be a good player. But I think with Mitch Marsh in there and the way some of your bowlers can bat, I just don't think he's necessary.
I would, if it was me.
Stop
it is
coughing.
Me.
Rob was coughing a lot on the last podcast. We apologise. Someone didn't care though. They were like, "Oh, I can't stand it. He's coughing too much." It's like Rob was dying. People have some sympathy.
What are you coughing for? Blatantly looked like I was on death's door. I go Stark, Cummins, Boland out for Hazelwood, and Murphy out as well. And I wouldn't play it. If Cameron Green is fit and firing it and can give you 20 overs in innings, I take Cameron Green. If he's not fit to bowl and be a genuine bowler, then I go with Michael Nisa.
Love it. I like that. And what about Warner?
That would be quite a poetic story, having him be the guy, a bit like Scotty Boland at the G. Build the man a statue. It'll be quite poetic for him, who's always been like Australia's 12th and 13th man throughout the years, to be the guy that could potentially bring the Ashes home for them. That would be quite nice.
It would be fitting. And he has...
Not nice to watch, but nice for him.
Yeah, not nice for us, but nice for you. It's just fit. I mean, you know, not a lot of Australians play a lot of county cricket anymore, but Nisa has played a ridiculous amount, hasn't he? So he would just be a great horse for the course, wouldn't he? I'd love it. The other way of getting Cam Green into the team, obviously, is a big question about David Warner. He has been residing for the last week or so in the back pocket of Stuart Broad, carrying him around everywhere he goes. Just probably like that. Hey, David, come on out.
Come on, David.
Like a little marsupial. So David Warner, is he definitely? For me, you've got to play Warner. For me, I know he's not had the strongest series. 141 runs in 6 innings, 23.5 average, 150. But you've got to give him another go. Surely this is his farewell tour, isn't it? We need Warner, and I'm not just saying that because I think Broad's going to get him out again. He'll probably get 200s in this game because if we start getting cocky about it. But I just think you've got to go with Warner. But that is the other option of how to get Cam Green in. There is also Marcus Harris, obviously, who's had a pretty good record in county cricket as well, and not a bad player wherever he plays. So there's a couple of options. That's probably the only other talking point for Australia, other than I hope Alex Carey's all right after Headingley. He got quite a lot of stick. So I'm not sure. We said before it was out. The run out was fine. He said he'd probably do the same thing again. We agree it was fine. No problem. Bairstow, stop whinging.
Yeah, it would have happened 50 times up and down the country on Saturday, mate. I'd be all right. Probably exactly. 60 on Sunday after a few pints.
Yeah, but Carey seems a nice bloke. I hope he's all right.
He does. I like Carey. David Warner. He is in a bit of a hole, mate. He's had such a strange few years, and it's 4 years now that's been relatively strange. 2020 scored a century against New Zealand in the only Test match he played in the year, so kind of discount that year from operation. His century counts, but discount it. Other than that, there's 1 century from the last 23 matches, and that was a double 100 against a really strong South African bowling attack. So it's a little bit like Zach Crawley syndrome, where there's a whole bunch of averaging in the mid-20s, and then there's this one score that kind of elevates everything for Crawley, like it does the 267. Difference being David Warner's strike rate. His career strike rate is 70. He hasn't batted at a 70 strike rate for a calendar year since 2017. He's nowhere near peak David Warner. He's 37 years old. There's a lot of water under the bridge. His balls per dismissal goes down year on year. Pre-COVID, his career is 62. Last year was 47 balls per dismissal. This year's 35. He averaged 38 in 2021, 30 in 2022, 18 in 2023. It feels to me like if they had someone ready to come in who they believed would add greater value or take up more headspace of the opposition, they would do it at the drop of a hat. And they're hoping they'll get a couple of, he got 2 90s in the Ashes in 2021, but did nothing in the rest of the series. So I think his time's up. It is up, but I don't think it's going to be until the end of the series, mate.
I agree. I don't think there's an overwhelming, decision to be made with who to come in. I don't think. I mean, I don't know what Harris is looking like in the nets. Maybe he's looking exceptional. Maybe they really want to find a way to get Green in the team, and Nisa and Hazelwood and everybody else. But I don't see it, and I don't think it's the right time at all. And I'm not saying this as an English fan thinking, yeah, Brody will get him. I just think Warner's too important overall, and he's. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Australia batted first and he got 100. And he smacked it around. We've seen it over the years, though, when players are just about at the end of the road, they just go, do you know what? I'm going to get dropped soon, or my time's done. I'm just going to play with freedom. Alistair Cook, before he then went to Australia in the 2010-11 Ashes, was basically, it was overnight, he was whatever score he was on. And then I think the next day he just went, I'm just going to play. And he smacked 100, and then he never looked back. And he became Sir Alistair Cook. I'm not saying David Warner's getting a knighthood. Don't worry, you don't want one anyway. But yeah, I think you keep Warner in. I absolutely think you do.
It's so strange, mate. Like, he was so solid for years for Australia, hated and solid and good. Scored fast, scored big runs. And then the last 2 years, he's never averaged less than the top 6 match average in a calendar year until the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Averaged 10 less than the top 6 in the matches that he played in. This year he's averaging 16.5 less. So, like, it just reeks of the time's up and how much time are you going to do. There is that, again, we talk poetic moments of Warner's end of career, scoring a century at the Oval, knocking off 300 and leading the team, and like, that would be a travesty for English cricket. That's worse than the burning of the bales.
Exactly. Yeah, it is a funny one, isn't it? So, I mean, just talking about travesties, just haven't mentioned it yet, but we said after the second test, forget about the fact that we're England cricket fans. This series was so much fun for the first 2 tests. It needed an England win in that third test. I don't care who you are or if you're Australian or not. If you want the interest of this series to carry on, even as an Australian cricket fan, you should be sat there kind of going, yeah, actually, I don't mind that England win that one. It keeps it alive, keeps it interesting, and it opens it up for potentially if it's a draw in the next game, which I don't think it will. I think we're going to have 5 results, aren't we? So it's just all to play for. So that's Australia. I don't think there's much more to talk about with Australia at the moment. Patty Cummins has been exceptional. Mitchell Stark has been, again, after that first spell.
Love Stark.
He just has looked so good. That Yorker, when he gets the Yorker out, he just looked. If you was to design, just create a bowler, he looks like a bowler, doesn't he? Just everything about him. It's just so frustrating. I
remember, this is completely random, but when I was in India, we had Australia in our hotel with us.
Oh, yeah.
And they were all going for the thing. One, I walked up to Shane Watson just before mealtime and asked for a photo because I was obsessed with Shane Watson because he was built and he was massive. And he looked really... One, he kindly did it. But 2, I could see the disappointment in his face that I asked him just before they went for food. And 2, it was looking round how tall all the bowlers. There was like Doug the Rug there was Mitchell Stark, there was Hazelwood. They were all 6'4", 6'5", these like long people. Really don't know why I'm going that way. Long people going up with just huge long limbs. Like, it was like, I'm fairly tall, I'm 6'1", but I felt really small. Stood in the queue for some food.
They go, child's queue over there.
Yeah. And saying that, I trained next to Brendan McCullum in the gym, and I felt really tall next to him until he was really built at the time, and he took off his top and his biceps were like Popeye, and his biceps were the size of my legs.
This is getting a little bit weird, everybody. I don't know about you, but I'm going to move this on. So that's Australia. I think that's how they're going to line up. Let's get back over to England. Really interesting talking about David Warner. And when I mentioned his 141 runs in 6 innings at an average of 23.5 with 150, there is a player with an identical record, Rob, for England. Can you guess who it is? Literally identical in this series. 6 innings, 141 runs, average of 23.5. Johnny Bairstow. Johnny Bairstow. And the reason I want to bring him up is 2 sides. We love Johnny Bairstow. The 2022 vintage of Johnny Bairstow was one of the finest vintages of cricketing man ever known in England. This isn't the same guy. I just want to say that. This isn't the same guy. I wish it was the same guy, but it's not. If we're talking about David Warner potentially keeping his place or not, we should be talking about Johnny Bairstow. No disrespect to him, but we should be. That's with a bat. He's looked pretty unconvincing with a bat. Again, in this test, he's missed opportunities. In the first innings especially, there's a couple of opportunities on the first morning, or the first day anyway, that went down, which could have cost us. Joe Root, blimey, he dropped Mitch Marsh early on. That could have cost us. It did anyway, didn't it? But it could have cost us even worse over the test. We win, we forget about it, we move on, it's all good. But Johnny Bairstow, there was talk of whether Ben Foakes would get called into the squad for this game. He didn't. James Rue's out there scoring 226 or whatever it was. The 19-year-old wonder kid from Somerset. I'm not saying yet. Maybe the winter. Yeah, maybe James Rue for the winter. But Johnny Bairstow, I mean, is he lucky? Is he lucky to still be in this team? Is there a little bit of too much of a clique in this setup already?
I think it's role suitability. They know the role they want Bairstow to play. They don't believe that they believe they've got a better chance of winning with Bairstow than they do with Foakes. That's regardless of the drops. They still put a value on his ability to win a game in the fourth innings. That's what I believe they do. And he's not been good. He's averaging 23. He's had 24 tests against Australia and he averages 28. 2 centuries, which is a good effort in Ashes cricket. But last year, he's not always been the cricketer he was last year. I think that's what we need to say. He was incredible last year, and it's so heartbreaking he got injured when he did. 6 centuries. But before then, you've got to go back to 2018 to the last time he scored a century in Test match cricket. Yes, he was used and dropped and picked, but he still played 19 Test matches across 3 years and didn't score a century in that time. He's a career average 36 guy. He's averaging 23 this year, so he's below that. But that's what averages do. Some years are good, some years are bad. Like, you can't always just be level playing field. Yeah,
the other thing as well when we compare Johnny Bairstow of last year to this year is last year he didn't have the gloves. He batted at 5, he had a clear role, and he was in the field. He was snaffling in slips, and he was taking catches in slips. You put the gloves on, put him behind the stumps, and he's I don't know what his percentages of catches, but I'd imagine he's probably closer to 50% this series. Than anything else.
I think you're being kind.
Well, I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be.
He does have a great celebration when he takes a catch, though. He's always there on the slow-mo, kind of pumping his arms. And
he loves to pump.
When he's not carrying off protesters.
Oh, jeez. Just a bit of dust. Get over it, people. Relax. Relax. I'm not going to go into that today. I have strong views. So that's Bairstow. The other question as well with Bairstow is, do you keep him at 5 and leave Harry Brook up at 3 then? Because we know that nothing's going to change in this batting lineup, or do we? That's the thing. You've got Duckett and Crawley. They were going pretty well, I think, as openers.
Yeah. They might not average heaps each, and Crawley might not average heaps, but the opening partnership is averaging a lot. They're averaging about 50 with the bat, and that's up there with some of the best England partnerships we've ever had. So I think the whole get Crawley out
not
is
yet.
Gone. He's adding value. He's hitting the first ball for 4, and I don't really care what my opener does after that. He's given me a moment I'll always remember.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more to come. I think there's more to come from Duckett and Crawley in this series, and you can clearly see that. Plus, where do you go? If they're in this next test anyway, so it's forget that conversation. Root is locked in at 4. So number 3, number 5 is the question. So they started with Harry Brook in the last test. I don't think that's the right move. I don't think Brook, we've already spoke about it. Moeen Ali got that role in the second inning, What do you do at number 3? Does Moeen Ali even play? We've already spoke about Australia not going with a spinner. I assume he will play, but there is a question mark to say. Dan Lawrence comes in at number 3. Brook goes back to 5. Stokes at 6. Bairstow's back at 7. And then you've got your 4 seamers, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is Woakes, Broad, and then where'd you go after that? Woakes, Broad, Wood, obviously, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But I think Woakes at 8 helps that lineup. So what do you do at number 3? That's the long-winded way of asking the question, Rob.
That is a great question. I feel like England are restrictive in their view of what they want. And just because something's not worked once doesn't mean they're going to just go ahead and change it. They might stick with it for quite a while. The wife would say similar things about me. Quite stubborn in my approach.
That's another podcast.
For the Why Is Your Relationship Not Working podcast.
Whoa!
It's stubbornness. I'm joking. Dan Lawrence is in good form. That's one thing to say. Like at the start, he had a poor last year, and he had a poor start of the year. but he has come good and he has got some really big scores and looked really solid. 135 against Langs, there was 152 against Warwickshire. He has never batted at number 3 in the county championship. Sorry, he's played 6 games at number 3, and they were several years ago.
You could. 4 and 5, is it?
If you go without the spinner, mate, like you're saying, go without the spinner, then you've got Lawrence's spin, and you've got Root's spin, and you're putting all your ducks in one basket, going, you know what, we're going to take 20 wickets. We don't need a spinner to be able to do that. Lawrence at 3, drop Brook down to 5, gives you an extended batting lineup. Bairstow dropping down a little bit. Could work. Does make me nervous because Stokes does love the spinner holding role in the middle of the innings that Leach always gave him.
Yeah. And Moeen proved it in this last game, didn't he? In the second innings where he bowled that wonderful spell, taking those 2 key wickets. So I think because of that, I think Ali will play. But it's just that interesting conversation. I am intrigued by Dan Lawrence. I'm not convinced by him at all, but I am a little bit more intrigued about him now than I was when he was called up over the winter, which I thought was completely unearned, in all honesty. But
it was, mate. I feel like because he's just moved, or he's moving counties, and it feels like that announcement is kind of taking a weight off his shoulder. And when he's done that, he's actually started to perform and he started to score runs, and it makes Surrey even stronger next year.
Is that where he's moving to? I didn't know.
He's moving to Surrey. Yeah.
Wow. I must have missed that one. We're Notts fans. So we can't talk about signings from any teams. Because we'll just get hammered for that anyway. As we're stealing all of Worcestershire's players. Jack Haynes is the next rumour. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah, I honestly, what I think they'll do, they'll stick with Brook at 3. The only change for me that I think they will do is we'll be in the bowling attack, and they'll bring in Anderson, and they will take out Ollie Robinson, who I feel may need a break because he's been on and off the pitch as well with back spasms and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for me, I think I'd like to see him just stay with Ali at 3 because I just don't feel like we're going to get a lot out of him with a bat anyway. So why not just chuck him at 3 and just if it comes off, it comes off. He's almost like a night watchman. It's like take the bonus runs. You've got Woakes basically playing that role, that Ali role, if you like, which would have been if Pope was still in the team. Which I've got more faith and trust in Woakes with a bat at the moment, from what I've seen. Not to say that Ali doesn't have the ability, but I think you go Ali at 3, Root 4, Brook's more comfortable at 5. I think he's settling into the series a little bit, which he didn't. He's had a bit of an up and down one, hasn't he? Johnny at 7, Woakes at 8, 9, 10, 11, Wood and Broad's in there. I would go Josh Tong.
Ooh, you're going for the pace.
I would go Josh Tong. I think he replaces what Robinson should give you. Robinson's not done bad. He got 10 wickets in his basically 3 tests, but obviously 2 if you like. Because we haven't really spoke about that. Obviously, he went off on the first day after 11.2 overs, I think it was, with a back spasm. Did not see him again. He reckons he could have bowled again if needed on day 4, I think he said. But I just don't think you take a risk of Ollie Robinson. And he's not giving you enough necessarily. I think Josh Tong and Robinson aren't dissimilar, but Tong has the extra pace. He's giving you that little bit of lift, giving that little bit of bounce. He's awkward. He's got a bit of the over Steve Smith. I'm not saying he's got a Broad to Warner on him, but he's got him out a few times now in county cricket as well. So I think Jimmy Anderson's just not shown enough for me in this series. I love Jimmy Anderson. I was around 2003 World Cup when he came in that quarter final against Australia. That Michael Stupid Bevan and the all-rounder that played locally around here, Bickle got Aussies over the line. Heartbreak. But young Jimmy Anderson was in the team ahead of Andy Caddick. That's how long the love affair with Jimmy Anderson's been going, Rob. I still wear that cap, by the way. It'll annoy you. I've still got a South Africa cap from 2003 that I still wear. It's older than half the team when I play. It's older than some of the players in the dressing room now. But yeah, Jimmy, I just don't think he's done enough in this series. And Josh Tong, I think, was unfortunate to be dropped in the last game. I thought he bowled fantastically well in the second test. I'd have him in. That's my 4.
Interesting one. Jimmy averages 22 at Old Trafford. 22. That's pretty useful. His career average is a lot more than that.
I'm not saying I'll be upset if Jimmy plays at Old Trafford. I'll be delighted if he plays and he plays well. I don't think we're quite in the farewell tour for Jimmy. There was a point earlier this summer where I wondered, especially after that first test, he was not a happy man. But yeah, we'll see. I think it comes down to Anderson or Tong anyway. It's worth saying as well that the squad was unchanged. The only change really was Pope dropped out because of injury, obviously. So there's no other bowlers added. There's no other interest in that conversation.
Were you surprised that England didn't change the squad?
Yes.
At all? Because they had the opportunity to.
Yeah, I would have changed. I would have added another batter. I would have added a batter that can bat in the top three, ideally as a proper number three, but could do a job if there was a Glenn McGrath rolling his foot over a ball by Duckett and Crawley the morning of the test. Because I'm just not convinced by Brook, Ali, or Lawrence as a number three option. Joe Root, Joe Root can do what he wants these days, but I still don't really understand why Joe Root can't bat at three. He's not a captain anymore. I understood it when he was a captain, but he's not now. He's not got to worry about, I've just stressed my head off in the field, sorting fielding places out and bowling change for 2 days. I need to rest. Just bat at three, man.
Oh, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm picking fights with Joe Root and Jimmy Anderson today. This is not my intention. Jesus.
I didn't come on here to do this. But
right.
I'd never touch Joe Root. I think if your best batter's got a place he likes batting, let him bat. It's a bit like Stokes. Everyone going, well, Stokes could open or Stokes could bat in three. Stokes thrives batting with the lower order better than anyone in world cricket.
Yeah.
Don't change that. Don't get in a run chasing 315, you're 200 for 5, and you've got, I don't know, someone that's not Ben Stokes coming in to bat at number 7. Like, your confidence and what it means to the opposition is completely gone.
Yeah, that's fair. So, yeah, I think to sort of round out this conversation, I think it's going to be really interesting what happens at number 3. It's going to be very interesting as well what happens, whether they pick Ali as well. And who's that third or fourth seamer? Well, fourth seamer, sorry, if Ali plays, especially. So, I don't know. I think Jimmy, it'd be great to see Jimmy. That's the story. But he says there's no nostalgia in this selection. If he's up for it, up to it, and he's bowling well enough, then he'll play. I'm sure he will. But if he's not quite looking like he's got the rhythm in the nets like he did in the first 2 tests, I don't see how you can play him. But let's get, if he's in there, brilliant. Can't wait. Roll on. Bring on this test match.
Roll on test match. So weather looks good. I've just had a little forecast check. There's maybe a spot of rain on Friday, Saturday, but it's not like a big dark cloud, which means we're going to be okay.
We're going to be all right.
Predictions, Rich.
Breaking news. As we finish this out, and this is perfect because it's just rounded out the conversation. This is wonderful because usually this would have happened after we've finished. But England's team has been confirmed. So it's Duckett and Crawley at the top. Moeen Ali is in at number 3. Root, Brook, Stokes, Bairstow, Woakes, Wood, Broad, and Jimmy Anderson. So Moeen Ali at 3. Yes, Moeen Ali he is listed as number 3 in the team that has been announced. But Jimmy Anderson comes in for Ollie Robinson. That's the big change.
So that's the only change.
Yeah, and Australia won't announce their team sensibly until the day of the game. But that's fine. I mean, I would have liked to see Tong in this game because I think he'd earned it. But if that tells me that Jimmy Anderson is looking good and he's been bowling well in the nets, he's well rested, he's ready for it. Here we go. 10 for game. I'm calling it now. I'm changing my tune. Jimmy Anderson, 10 wickets in the game.
Okay, so none of us said that Ali will bat at 3. England are batting Ali at 3. You said Ali at 3.
Well, basically, yeah. I said I'd rather have him. I said I'd rather have him there because what's the point of having him down the order? He's like a night watchman. Right. That whole conversation I had that Rob wasn't listening to. This is what it's like, people. Rob doesn't listen to me. I said Moeen Ali at 3.
Also sounds familiar to what the wife says.
Shut up.
Right, so predictions, that 11 against Australia. What are we doing? We're 2-1 down. Ashes on the line. Weather may come into play. Someone's just tweeted saying the weather's really bad.
England
in Manchester,
it's been
and
dreadful.
Potentially thunderstorms on Sunday. So that means we're going to have to score fast to finish by Saturday.
Yes, and that's what people that get annoyed by the B word, and I don't mean the other one we get annoyed by, but I'm talking about the Bazball one. This is one of the benefits is that because of the way England play and the way they bat at a certain rate, it's going to be. There's more chance of a result if rain gets in the way. I'm just looking at the forecast over the next 10-day forecast or whatever it is. There is rain every day. Where is it? Like literally every day in Manchester.
Maybe don't let me from New Zealand check the Manchester weather and tell you what's going to happen.
Is there a Manchester in another country? It's probably in Alabama or something. Yeah, so rain will be around. It's been miserable here. If anyone from Australia is listening, surprise, surprise, it's been miserable in England this last couple of weeks as we hit middle of summer. It's just so unsettled. There's rain, there's sunshine, there's rain, there's sunshine. It's a really weird time. Climate change, it's real, folks. Yeah, so we'll see. For me, it's an England win, though. I think we'll back quick enough to make sure there's enough time left in the game. I think if there needs to be a declaration by England, if we're batting first, I think England will put a positive declaration in. Whether that will mean England win is another question, but there will be a result in this game. And obviously for the series to take it to the fifth and final decider at the Oval, I want an England win. Simple as that.
I want an England win. Looking at the forecast, I'm going to take an England win or a draw.
Yep, I'll take those.
Either way, something that gives us not a dead rubber, but a fifth test match for the ages, which will probably involve Johnny Bairstow scoring a century to draw the Ashes and still not have them in English possession for 20 years straight.
However, we will always have the Ashes because it cannot leave the country. I'm sorry, folks. Rules are rules. That's one I like.
Exactly. Let us know down in the comments below. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you've probably slagged us off. But let us know down below what you think the result of the test match is going to be, what you think of the makeup of this England team, if you would do anything different.
Australia.
What you think about this Australian team as well. There's plenty of Aussies listening. Is it a good one? What would you do with Cameron Green? Would you just look at the size of his hands and go, oh, they're really big mitts? That's all the commentators seem to say. Don't get me involved on commentators. I'm not enjoying them, particularly in the Major League Cricket. Not enjoying that either. But that's for another time. I'm going to leave you on that. Thank you for listening. Bye.